Welcome everyone to the game between Divya Deshmukh playing with the black pieces against Adela Velikic. A handshake between the two players, and this is going to be an important game for Divya, for his team Monte Carlo. Uh, Adela Velicic is playing for the team of Crvena Zvezda, and she's rated 2262. And she gives something to her opponent before the game. That's very sweet of her, actually. And I think some players do that, even though chess is a brutal game where you fight your opponent over the board, but that's when the clocks begin. Before the clock starts, you can be friends. After the game ends, you can be friends, and that's just the beauty of chess. You can make friends across the globe. And yeah, well, Adela clearly has her priorities set there, that it's nice to be friends with your opponent before the game, but now we are getting close to it beginning. Divya is currently at 2504 in the live rating list, so that will be exciting. This is not the first time that Divya has crossed 2500. She did that in October 2024 as well, but right now she's at a upward trajectory in her career. Let's see how this game goes. Pawn to c4 by Adela. And now what is Divya going to do here? He plays c6. She plays c6. The idea of c6 is to go for the Slav defense here. And Adela goes pawn to d4. So Divya is actually, her openings are not particularly fixed. She's moving around, she's exploring, she's in this phase where she's getting stronger at openings, trying out new things. Knight comes out to f3. So it's always interesting to see her choice. Knight to f6 played. And now knight c3 is one of the main moves. e3 is another move. e3 played by Adela. And this move has a small drawback, that it blocks your bishop. Divya plays bishop f5, which is ambitious because you want to put your pawn on e6, get the bishop out of the pawn chain, but pawn takes pawn taken here. Pawn takes pawn. Now the structure is symmetrical, and Adela says, I'm taking advantage of your bishop having moved, so I'm attacking the b7 pawn. Divya calmly plays queen c7, not just defending, but also attacking the c1 bishop. Bishop comes to d2. She's not kind of putting her knight on c3 just yet. And e6 by Divya, opening up her bishop here. And knight e5, moving the same piece twice in the opening. Is that a good idea? Knight c6, Divya is rushing ahead to finish her development. But now the queen pins the knight. Adela is trying to create play on the c6 knight. Let's see how Divya plays. She plays bishop d6. I love this, because if bishop b5 now, then I can simply castle. And to win this pawn is not particularly a great idea because of rook b8. So that's the reason why knight c3 played. Bishop takes knight. And knight b5 is the idea with which Adela plays this. And queen b6 played. Now notice, if you go and queen b8, pawn takes, knight takes, maybe this is the position that Adela wanted. But Divya went queen b6, pawn takes, and knight e4. Excellent chess. Controlling the square on d6, also attacking the bishop here. And now rook d8 played. You could also have taken on d2, allowing the check, moving the king up to d7, and then picking up the e5 pawn. But rook d8. Divya plays this. And now knight to d6 check. But if you think about this, the pawn on d6 could very well become a huge weakness here. And I think black can simply castle here. And that's what Divya does. Short castle on the board. Look at the time on the clock for Adela. She's down to 11 minutes. Divya has 33 minutes. Rook to d7. She wants to play rook d8 and win the pawn on d6. g4, well, it's time to mix things up, because otherwise the position looks bad for white. You're losing your d6 pawn. Bishop e4, provoking maybe the pawn push to f3. So pushes pawn to f3, bishop comes back to g6. If h4, you have h5. Yeah, plays the pawn to h4, and Divya pushes her pawn to h5. Excellent move. Pawn takes pawn, taken, and bishop takes pawn. Rook g1. Well, Velikic is trying for some attack here on g7, but Divya very calmly pushes her pawn to f6. She's playing very good chess. Rook d8, winning this d6 pawn could be a nice idea. She does it. And now b4. I think that's a nice move. The point is, of course, knight e5 by Divya. The point was, if you take here b5, and when the knight moves, there's bishop a5, winning the exchange. So nice trap there. D4 was possible, but knight e5, b5 played. Again, threatening bishop a5. And Divya plays rook to c8, just coming out of this idea and trying to win this pawn. Bishop a5 played nonetheless. It takes on d6 now. And black is a pawn up. Takes, rook takes. The issue is now rook c1, and white has compensation, but f4 is a big mistake. Divya can now take advantage of this fact by coming in with a rook and pinning the bishop here. She doesn't have to move the knight. Can she find it? 11 minutes to Divya, 1 minute to Adela. She finds it in a flash. Beautiful move there by Divya Deshmukh. And now pawn takes knight, but rook takes e2. Takes it. King goes back to f1. And now Divya takes back. So she is right now couple of pawns up, but more than that, her pieces are really well placed. Bishop f3 with the idea of e4 coming up. Bishop c7 played. And Divya calmly comes back to d7. Not just to attack the bishop, but after bishop e5, she can move the rook to f7 to launch the attack from this side of the board. And that's what she does. Excellent chess here. Rook f7. And I don't see this game now being able to, white being able to salvage it. Rook takes e3 is a pawn. Another pawn going down. Yes, takes it. Rook takes e3 taken. Pressure here on e5. Rook c1 threatening a check. And rook e4 played. Putting pressure on h4. h5 played. And rook to h4. He moves in with a check. King h7. And rook to a8. The a7 pawn is a bit weak, but I mean, maybe it's not the most critical pawn there. Rook h1 check. King comes up to f2. And Divya now is going to snatch another pawn. This is the third pawn that she wins, that too with a check. King e3 played. And b6, defending the pawn this way. Just not letting anything go off the hook. Bishop b8. Adela is trying to attack this pawn. Rook e1 check. And 40th move completed. So both sides do get 30 extra minutes. A check here. And now rook d1 check. If king e3, there's d4. So king c3 played. And rook f3 check. Is there a mate somewhere? King b2. She plays rook f2 check. King c3. And now bishop g6. The idea is if you win this pawn here, it's already mate after rook f3, king b2, and rook b1, checkmate. So bishop coming in. So that's the reason why she goes rook g3, stopping the check. But rook c2, check, king b3, and now Divya comes back, pins here the bishop and the rook. Very nice move. And all the threats are taken out. She plays a check on h3, king g8, rook to g3, trying to attack this bishop here. But Divya very quickly trades off the final piece that is active. Rook d3 check. Rook takes. Bishop takes. And now, yeah, this is a very unfortunate pin here. a4. And a beautiful move d4 to win the rook in the corner of the board. Adela resigns with a smile on her face. Divya scores an important win for her team, and that was very critical because Alexandra Kostyanyuk won. However, Elizabeth Pates had lost her game, which means that with this win, the team of Monte Carlo that Divya is representing wins 2.5, 1.5, and Divya herself has played brilliantly in this tournament. If you see, she has scored now 4 out of 5, gaining serious rating points, and that's amazing. Congratulations to her.